Indonesian government and the private sector.
So my name is Thijs Hesselmans, I'm from Blanda. And one of the many things I like about Fakultas Ekonomi and Business Universitas Indonesia is that the campus is really green. It's wonderful.
In the future, we are aiming to become Asia's leading economics and business learning center, which contributes to the development of Indonesia and the global community. FEB-UI has 3 departments: the Department of Economics, the Department of Management, and the Department of Accounting, with specified courses such as With more than 65 years of experience as a prestigious educational institution in Indonesia, we have become one of the few that consistently produce the best graduates in the country. The development of FEB-UI is not only limited in the standard degree education, but also in non-degree education, research, and consulting. Through cooperation, we always strive to provide benefits for both parties involved.
Hi, I'm Narumi Ishikawa from Japan Chiba University. Thank you for FEB to expanding my knowledge. Thank you for Universitas Indonesia. Terima kasih banyak.
Currently, there are plenty of FEB-UI graduates who occupy key positions both in the government and private companies, local and international. The Faculty of Economics and Business University of Indonesia welcomes the entire academic community with open arms to achieve a bright and successful future together.
Part of FEB-UI.
Be part of FEB-UI for a better future.
FEB-UI, massive campus with great people and unique local food.
At the current affairs where we witnessed lingering COVID-19 pandemic, global economic recovery remained unfavorable to be achieved. Global inequality rise to a level that never seen in the past decade. Mobility restriction policies resulting from COVID-19 prevention measures have disabled many communities to fulfill their daily needs. Risks of divisions between social groups exacerbated as the threat of scarring effect to the future generations, as well as increased risk of systemic default that put financial sector under pressure, have made the exit strategy from COVID-19 pandemic even more challenging to be executed. Such risks also result in prolonged trust deficit among countries that slow down efforts to tackle greater long-term issues such as climate change and massive biodiversity extinction. All of these phenomena need to be followed with better formulation of economic and policy approach under one coordinated action. The Think 20, or better known as the T20, is the G20's official engagement group that connects think tanks worldwide. The T20 serves as a global ideas bank, bringing together experts from the most relevant think tanks and research institutes worldwide. The T20 develop and communicate research-based policy recommendations to the G20 leaders. In its 10th year, the T20 under the Indonesian presidency will be present to systematically produce practical policy proposals for G20 decision makers. This year, T20 highlighted 3 strategic issues. First, promoting greater cooperation for stronger, balanced, and resilient recovery. Achieving resilient and inclusive economic recovery simultaneously by global economies is essential to reduce the risk of having prolonged crises that affect unevenly across social classes. Second, advancing concerted effort for inclusive and sustainable development. Post-pandemic development in times of changing climates issues will be discussed further by think tanks across the world under the coordination of T20 Indonesia's 9 task forces. Together, these task forces, as well as all T20 participants, will join under our series of events. Alongside the support provided by these task forces, T20 Indonesia will be led by our lead co-chairs as well as executive co-chairs. The T20 Indonesia, hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the Institute for Economic and Social Research, University of Indonesia, both are think tanks that play important roles in policy-oriented research. Recover together, recover stronger.
Since its establishment in 2001, the Semeru Research Institute has been a leader in poverty and inequality research in Indonesia. As an independent institution, we provide accurate and objective analysis on various socio-economic and poverty issues considered most urgent and relevant for the people of Indonesia. All of our work is directed toward our primary goal of encouraging pro-poor policies at national and regional levels by providing research-based evidence. We conduct qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method studies. Our work focuses on areas of socio-economic research such as poverty and inequality, social protection, education, health, children, community-driven development, and more. We produce research reports, working papers, policy briefs, videos, newsletters, and more. Several of Semeru's works are also published by other institutions and in international journals. All of our publications are available for free. We also present our findings and recommendations at conferences and seminars, many of which are live-streamed through our website. Semeru's interactive poverty and livelihood map of Indonesia details the poverty estimates and livelihood conditions of all the provinces, districts, sub-districts, and villages across Indonesia. The map presents the 2010 poverty estimates of the general population, as well as children below 18 years of age, using the national poverty line, as well as the international poverty.
Are you online? Hi, Gonzalo. Are you online?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Team,
Okay.
maybe if Gonzalo pushes his video on, maybe you guys can.
Hello, Putu?
Yes, Gonzalo. Hello.
Hello, Putu.
Yes.
I sent your final presentation like half an hour ago.
Yes, I did. I've uploaded it to the team.
The very last one.
Oh, okay. I will check if you.
It is number 2. It is number 2.
Okay. I'll re-download it and then re-upload it.
So I sent you the very last one just recently.
Okay. Well, okay.
It is number 2, I think.
Yes, okay.
Satu Indonesia, or Astra's unified spirit for Indonesia, exemplifies Astra's active role and contribution in the pursuit of nurturing the people of Indonesia. It brings every commitment, venture, and work under a common framework and creates added values for the nation's progress. Throughout the years, since founded in 1957, Astra has consistently shown real contribution dedicated to move Indonesia forward. As a company, Astra has grown and today manages over 180,000 employees and over 200 subsidiaries across the archipelago. In line with one of Astra's corporate philosophy, Caturdharma values, to be an asset to the nation, Astra has an unwavered commitment to social contributions for Indonesia. The company's endeavors in this regard are designed to be effective and robustly structured, identifying 4 pillars of Astra untuk Indonesia Sehat, Astra untuk Indonesia Cerdas, Astra untuk Indonesia Hijau, and Astra untuk Indonesia Kreatif. Supported by 9 foundations under the company, Astra makes it a conscious effort to take an active part in and dedicating its ideas and work to the nation for a prosperous and dignified Indonesia. Astra untuk Indonesia Sehat. The well-being of a nation lies on the well-being of its future generations. To ensure it can be achieved, the health of mothers and children are a priority of Astra untuk Indonesia Sehat. Access to and improved quality of education and vocational skills open the doors to better life quality. Astra is therefore committed to shaping smart, self-reliant generations. Astra works to tap into the knowledge and skills of Indonesia's human capital. As education in Indonesia is important for Astra, Astra ensures that Indonesian children can benefit from quality education as a tool for them to transform their lives for the better. Astra untuk
Halo Ibu. Bu Vivi. Halo Ibu. Halo Bu Vivi. Halo Ibu.
Hai Niki.
Hai Ibu, terima kasih Ibu bisa join. Halo Ibu. Ibu di sini kita ada Gonzalo. Boleh teman-teman IT Gonzalo dipin juga.
Mbak Niki, saya bisa share screen sendiri ya?
Bisa Bu, tapi kalau misalnya share screen, itu nanti videonya Ibu ketutup sama teman-teman juru bahasa isyarat, nggak apa-apa nggak Bu? Atau kalau mau, kita yang bantu share screen?
Jadi kecil soalnya. Ya kan, kalau pakai frame gitu jadi kecil.
Gimana Bu jadinya? Terserah Ibu sih Bu.
Nggak masalah.
Ibu mau share screen
yang
sendiri?
Yang penting, ya, yang penting paparannya terlihat. Sayanya nggak terlihat nggak masalah.
Oke, siap Ibu. Teman-teman IT, boleh Gonzalo dipin juga teman-teman. Bu Vivi udah sampai rumah Bu. Ada apa nanti terbang jam 1?
Saya di Semarang ini.
Oh ya.
Lagi melarikan diri dari acara di sini.
Aduh, kita bersyukur banget Ibu ada waktu. Gimana teman-teman IT? Bu Vivi, moderator kita Bu Ratna. Ibu ini ada Ibu Ratna dari FEB.
Ibu Vivi. Halo Bu Ratna.
Hi both. So Gonzalo, this is Ibu Vivi Yulaswati. She is the leading expert in poverty and poverty policy and social policy regarding to poverty. Ibu Vivi, this is Gonzalo. He is very famous. He established the National MPI for Mexico and so many other programs. And everyone, this is Ibu Ratna, your moderator for today. Gonzalo, I downloaded and uploaded your latest slides. Hopefully they're the right ones.
Yeah.
And here you go, Ibu Ratna.
Oh, okay.
Nice to meet you. Great to meet you.
Thank you, Gonzalo.
Halo, Ibu Vivi. Selamat
Pagi, Bu.
Pagi, Bu Ratna.
Mau dimulai aja langsung.
Sebagai moderator, kita pasang clip on. Gimana? Mau pasang clip on ke Ibu nanti. Mau pakai mic ya. Nanti mungkin buat pertanyaan. Belakang. Clip on buat moderator.
Indonesia Hijau. A healthy and clean environment are essential for us to move forward in life. Through Astra untuk Indonesia Hijau, Astra acts upon its commitment to creating a healthy, safe, and sustainable environment. With global warming presenting real threats to our planet's survival, Astra is actively involved in various programs for a greener Earth as part of its contribution to improving the quality of our environment. Our planet and the future await us and the millions of other beings on Earth. Astra untuk Indonesia Kreatif. Through Astra untuk Indonesia Kreatif, Astra is on the ground working alongside communities to improve their prosperity by helping and facilitating small and medium businesses all over Indonesia. Astra provides training, coaching, funding, and equipment suited to the needs of the beneficiaries with one goal in mind: raising the nation's prosperity by creating excellent human capital and decent jobs. 133 Kampung Berseri Astra across 34 provinces focus on the development of villages based on 4 pillars, which include entrepreneurship, health, education, and environment. Kampung Berseri Astra continues to be developed based on the numbers and concepts towards Desa Sejahtera Astra. Satu Indonesia Awards. Satu Indonesia Awards is a form of appreciation towards the Indonesian youth who have the initiatives and idealism to share and create benefits for the communities. The awards have 5 main focuses, which include health, education, environment, entrepreneurship, and technology. Since March 2020 until today, Astra, through Nurani Astra, maintains its commitment to help the government, frontline health workers, and the community in facing the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. To be an asset to the nation, Astra continues to embrace and work towards realizing Indonesia's dreams and to achieve sustainable growth, because your smile and the smile of the people are the smile of Astra, the smile of Indonesia. We are united, and together we shall achieve triumph as we walk towards an advanced and prosperous Indonesia. Astra, prosper with the nation.
The Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia, FEBUI, is a modern, dynamic, and welcoming campus, a place to study for the nation's future leaders. Situated in 2 strategic locations, Depok and Salemba, we are fully committed to contribute to the development of knowledge in economics and business, and to nurture future leaders with a sense of social responsibility and the ability to address global environmental changes. For over 65 years, we have produced the country's best graduates that will potentially play important roles both in the Indonesian government and the private sector.
So my name is Thijs Hesselmans, I'm from Blanda, and one of the many things I like about Fakultas Ekonomi and Business Universitas Indonesia is that the campus is really green. It's wonderful.
Specified courses such as With more than 65
Good
years of
morning,
experience as a
distinguished
prestigious
guests and
educational
audience,
institution
both,
in Indonesia,
offline and online.
we have become one of the few that
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ratna Wardani. I'm a head of research cluster of Public Sector Accountability and Governance, Faculty Economic and Business, Universitas Indonesia. I will be the moderator in this panel session. In this panel session, we will discuss a very interesting topic, the experience of countries in using multidimensional poverty index data in budget allocation policies. With us this morning, we have two honorable panelists who have attended via online. Mr. Gonzalo Hernandez. Hello, Gonzalo. And together,
hello.
Yeah. And together with us, we also have Ibu Vivi Yulaswati. Selamat pagi, Bu Vivi.
Selamat pagi.
Ya, selamat pagi, Ibu. Ibu Vivi is from Bappenas, Indonesia. Before starting our discussion, allow me to read a short bio of each panelist. Mr. Gonzalo Hernandez is Director of Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, or MPPN, providing strategic direction to network of 60 countries and 20 international agencies, sharing best practice on how to measure multidimensional poverty. He was formerly the Executive Secretary of National Council for Evaluation of Social Development Policy in Mexico. Ibu Vivi Yulaswati is an expert staff to Minister of National Development Planning, or Bappenas, Indonesia, for Social Affairs and Poverty Reduction, who has the task of providing recommendation on strategic issue to the minister related to social sector and poverty alleviation. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, so the topic of our panel discussion is on incorporating multidimensional poverty index, or MPI, into budget allocation policies. As you might all know, the first goal in Sustainable Development Goal is ending poverty in all its forms everywhere by 2030. 5 years later, after the SDGs were launched, the global community is being rocked by public health crisis, COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, with this COVID-19 pandemic, the poverty alleviation policy has become even more important. A more comprehensive poverty measurement needs to be the basis for decision making. The main question in this panel discussion is that how a country can use this index data for policy purposes. How a country can incorporate data and information related to poverty measurement, and how this measurement can link to policies such as budget allocation policies. For Indonesia, multidimensional poverty measurement is a new breakthrough in capturing poverty condition. With the national MPI, government will get a more real picture of poverty. I'm sure you already listened to the presentation of the keynote speakers in previous session, and we all know the importance of the poverty using multidimensional measurement during the COVID-19 pandemic especially, and the importance of database and measurement of the poverty itself. First, I would like to open discussion session. The first question to Mr. Gonzalo. Mr. Gonzalo.
Sure.
Yeah, regarding to the multidimensional poverty index, or MPI data, in your experience, what was it like leading the development of national MPI in Mexico, Mr. Gonzalo? And what were the main challenges that you face? How this measurement been pivotal to the monitoring development in Mexico, and can this process be adapted by another country, especially in the midst of the pandemic? Mr. Gonzalo, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate the government of Indonesia and the organizers for the T20 events and for including multidimensional poverty measurement as one of the leading topics. Today we are facing a double or even triple world crisis. COVID is still here, affecting mortality, health, incomes. We also have high inflation in the world, and all these elements are affecting people's lives in many ways. And of course, poverty is one of them. So what we need right now, as always, but especially right now, is a robust measuring of tools to help countries to understand our reality and to be a guide for a better public policy. So I guess the MPI, the Multidimensional Poverty Indicator, is one of those key instruments. So what I'm going to do in the next 19 minutes, more or less, is I'm going to talk about what happened in Mexico in terms of adopting the MPI, which were the technical and the political issues. As you will see, whenever we set up a multidimensional poverty indicator, we will have technical elements, but also political engagements. So I want to show all that. Then I'm going to talk about some of the uses of the MPI, and finally some conclusions. So I guess I have a presentation here. So if we go to the next one, please. Before the year 2000, believe it or not, there was no official poverty measurement in Mexico. And finally, the new government with a new party, after 70 years of the same party in Mexico, they were willing to measure. And we have to, in the case of Mexico, it is important to link this with the fact that around that time, there were in Mexico free elections, finally, democracy, and therefore there were the push for more transparency. And therefore, it is important to recognize that when a government, when a country has a true level of transparency, then it is very important that the citizens and political parties will be asking for a better measurement. So the first attempt was to measure income poverty in the year 2002. We got that, but nevertheless, political parties were not very happy about the way poverty was measured for two main reasons. One is that the measurement was only about income. And the second one is that the measurement was done by the government only. And therefore, by that time, all political parties agreed to have an independent poverty measurement, and that these measurements should include social rights. And therefore, in the social law, there was a special law signed by all political parties. There was the need to create an agency to measure poverty in an independent way and to measure poverty in a multidimensional way. If we go to the next one, please. So what is interesting, if we go to the next one, please. What I think it is interesting from, if we go to the next, if possible. I don't know if you can see the screen very well, but what it says here is that through the social development law, there was a need to measure poverty using various dimensions, including income, education, access to health services, access to social security, access to the quality of housing, improved services in the house, access to food. And therefore, what is interesting always is, if you go to the next one, is that every time we set up, if we have the next click, please, every time we are working towards the poverty measurement, no, to the previous one, so it's all right. If we go to every time we set up a poverty indicator, we always have both elements. We have the technical element in which we're trying to set up the best methodology to measure poverty, and therefore we need the important knowledge of technicians, I will see in a second, but at the same time, we need policy engagement. We need people in government, people in parliament, to agree to have a poverty measurement in the country. I believe Mexico and Indonesia, we are very similar in many ways, and therefore, I'm sure that in Indonesia you are working both on the technical element to have a new MPI and to launch an MPI. At the same time, you are working with various stakeholders. Many people are there. There are champions around Indonesia working with many stakeholders about the importance of the MPI. And therefore, with these exchanges, what happened, as it happened in Mexico, if you do many clicks forward, please, you will see that between 2007 and 2009, we were able to have a lot of engagement with many stakeholders. If you go to the next one element, please. And a very important element whenever we have a poverty measurement is how is there buy-in from many stakeholders, how there's ownership by many stakeholders. And the only way of doing that is working with many stakeholders and explaining and convincing and including their views along the way. And when I'm talking about including their views, it is their technical and their political views. Because at the end of the day, what you want is a poverty measurement, in this case, a multidimensional poverty indicator, for which most of the people will rely on it. That many people will trust on this indicator. And in order to do that, we need to have both the points of view of the technical people from within, from Mexico, from Indonesia, from outside, experts helping to work with the country. And that's a very interesting part. In the Mexican case, if you do many clicks later, please, you will see that many external experts were invited to discuss the MPI, including Sabine Alcaide and James Foster, who are there with us in Indonesia. And at the end of the day, in the year 2009, Mexico was the first country in the world to have a multidimensional poverty indicator. And let me just underline this element, that this was because we were able, through a couple of years, to work with many stakeholders, both on the political arena and in the technical arena. And at the end of the day, as it is today still, the majority of the stakeholders believe and trust on this indicator because it was built this way. If we go to the next one, please. And therefore, we are able now to measure poverty in the whole country, but also in the states and also the municipalities. Therefore, during the discussions, the states were important. In Mexico, we have many states, many regions, as it happens in Indonesia. And I believe along the way, it is important to talk to these stakeholders, because at the end of the day, what we want and we are able to do in Mexico is to measure poverty in the whole country and in all these states. You can see the states with a darker red are the poorest states in Mexico. Usually in the southeast of Mexico and the southwest of Mexico, you'll see more poverty. So this is, at the end of the day, our MPI is able to do that in a desegregated method. The next one, please. So what is important in the case of Mexico, and every country is different in the way they set up the institutional processes to have the MPI. But in the Mexican case, it is very important to get that. It started somehow in the Mexican Constitution saying that social rights are important. Then we have the national law saying we need an independent institution to measure poverty. And in that law, it said that we need to have a multidimensional poverty, including the social rights on the Constitution. The agreement also includes measuring poverty at a national, state, and municipality level. And as Sabina said previously in her talk, the MPI is very useful for many policymakers because with an MPI, the public policy is visible in this approach. So whenever you have a child at school, if you have the dimension of access to education, immediately poverty goes down, irrespective of income. So for many dimensions, the public policy that the government is doing will reduce poverty almost immediately if the work is done properly. Therefore, this is very attractive for many stakeholders in government, in parliament, because there is a direct way of linking public policy to the reduction of poverty. And at the end of the day is what we want as a society. And finally, if you give another click, please, you will see that this makes sense. The MPI makes sense only if we use it for public policy, as I said before. And there are many possibilities, as Sabina said before, about using the MPI for public policy. So for instance, we can monitor poverty in the country or in the states or in the regions. The people could know what happens to poverty during COVID, before COVID, what happened after COVID. So we can monitor poverty in the country, in the whole country, in the regions. We can use it for accountability reasons. I mean, the people have the right to know what happens to poverty. So we use it for accountability. We use it for coordinating poverty strategies. I mean, one of the most important uses and the most concrete uses of MPI is to use it for coordination purposes, because poverty includes many dimensions, and each of these dimensions, one of the ministries is responsible of this dimension. Therefore, if a country has the goal to reduce poverty in various dimensions, then it will need to coordinate a poverty strategy with all ministries, which means that it's not only the Ministry of Social Development, the one responsible for poverty reduction, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of Finance, of course, all of them are responsible for poverty reduction. And if we look at it this way, then the coordination process is important. We can use it for targeting. We can use it for budget allocation. Therefore, there are many uses. Let me give you an example. If we go to the next one, please. If we go to the next one, and then I come back later to this one. We go to the next one. So in the case of Mexico, in the state of Oaxaca and the state of Puebla, some of the poorest states in Mexico, the states were able to reduce poverty using the state MPI, which is part of the national MPI. First of all, they targeted their actions to 20 municipalities with the highest percentage of poverty, and the 20 municipalities with the highest numbers of poverty, and then they targeted, and then they had a budget process in which the governor, together with the municipalities and together with the ministers, they were able to assign poverty resources to those poor municipalities. And after 6 years, poverty went down from 68% to 61%. And furthermore, the poorest municipality in Mexico, which was in Oaxaca, reduced poverty from 95% to 45% in only 5 years. And this was only because they used MPI. Another example, please, If you go to the next one, the next one is in Bhutan. They were able to get a specific budget formula in which they had many elements within, and one of those which weighted 45% was the MPI. So in order to assign budgets to different districts, Bhutan used the MPI for these purposes. And finally, if you go to the next one, in Costa Rica, they were able to use also the MPI for budget purposes. They were assigning in a different way the budget using the MPI, and they were very successful on this respect. So these are some of the examples that it can be used for MPI. And finally, because the time is running, I just want to let you know that now, as Sabina mentioned before, many countries have national MPIs. Colombia, Bhutan, Costa Rica, Mozambique. Many countries are now there because they are interested in reducing poverty in various dimensions, and because it's very useful, as I said before, to link public policy to MPI. It is not that easy to link public policy to income poverty, but it is easier to do it through MPI. That is one of the reasons why we have now more countries doing that. And of course, this is done with the help of external friends such as OPHI, but also, as Sabina mentioned before, many of these countries are part of the Multidimensional Poverty Network, the MPPN. And in this network, we are able to exchange our challenges, our successes, our stories, our frustrations in building an MPI. So we meet every 3 or 4 months during the year, and all countries are talking about what they do, what have been done. And there is a lot of exchanges and help between countries, which of course I invite our friends from other countries to be part of MPM. And of course, I wish Indonesia the best of the lucks in trying to get the MPI and launch an MPI, because as you know, this is going to be a very important measurement for the future of Indonesia and the region. So thank you very much and congratulations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gonzalo, for the presentation. It was very interesting to learn Mexico's experience in developing national MPI and how the process can be developed, and the use of MPI in many aspects of public policy. And one of the most important policy is budget allocation. Mr. Gonzalo also provides several examples, such as several states in Mexico, Bhutan, and also Costa Rica, where MPI is used as criteria or basis in policy such as budget allocation and public spending. It is very interesting. Next, we moving to Ibu Vivi. Ibu Vivi.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Yeah. Ibu Vivi, as I mentioned before, multidimensional poverty measurement can also break through in Indonesia government to get a real picture of poverty. In your experience, Ibu, what are the main challenges in Indonesia in facing with regard to monitoring welfare and social policy, especially in the midst of the pandemic? How can broader measures such as MPI support Indonesia in mitigating these challenges? The screen is yours, Ibu.
Thank you very much, Bu Ratna. Selamat siang, very good afternoon for both of you join online and offline. Let me share my slide. It's just a couple of slides actually. I hope everybody already can see it. Okay, This is some progress on the socio-economic conditions amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We could see here that indeed there are some increasing in poverty and unemployment during the COVID-19, but the latest figures, we already back to the going back on track. Only the Gini ratio that's in the last figures, which is March 2022, is still increasing. I would like to go into detail on these slides because this is now the priority for the presidents to end the extreme poverty by 2024. From this slide, we could see that actually the highest poverty rates are still dominated by regions in eastern part of Indonesia, mostly in Papua, like the Yai districts, Jayawijaya and Lanijaya, which is the most isolated places in Indonesia. But in terms of the absolute number of the extreme poor, they are still in Java. If we could see the productive age in each district is quite varied, but for those I already mentioned that has high extreme poverty, actually also has the highest productive age. This productive age is necessary to map what type of interventions, programs, innovations appropriate to extinguish the extreme poverty. So during the pandemic, COVID-19, for sure the government has the main priority is to protect its people, mainly the vulnerables and including the extreme poor. We could see here that many programs are expanded and actually modified. There are some new programs, including the pre-work card and subsidy, interest subsidy for the SMEs and several businesses. Both contributory and non-contributory or tax-based scheme has been modified in order to give comprehensive protection for those who are most vulnerable during the pandemic. And it follows by targeting conditionalities for some programs and also the modality in transfers. However, because we are now aware that the shocks not coming only from COVID and natural disaster, the government now plan to expand the social protection to be more adaptive. When we are talking about the adaptive, then we should coordinate more with other programs that exist and actually establish with their own SOPs, mechanism, and also the funding. So now we are still in the process of collaborating from the perspective of the social protection, the climate change adaptation, and disaster risk reductions. There are 4 building blocks, I would say, to build these adaptive social protections. First, from the assessment of the people, there are a couple of database that now or survey, I would say, and that quite new. First is we are now in the transition, also optimizing the data from the population agencies while waiting for the completed survey from the socio-economic registries. And there are several discussions in link with the one data policy, including one map policy. It's not easy because it's not coming from the scratch, but in fact, some of them is already exists and implemented in many regions. I will support with the a statement of Gonzalo in the previous that it's really need political support when we are talking about comprehensive and also how to diverge many systems as well as mechanism. The other building block is about strengthening the financing and also the institutionalization as well as the design itself. So we are now focusing on these, and the ones that still challenges for all of us is in the monitoring and targeting. As I mentioned earlier, the database improvement is still going on, and as always, when we improve the database, oftentimes the readiness of the data has a lag when we are ready to use the data, the newer data. Then the conditions at the community is already different, as well as the programs at the local level. So these challenges shows that the income level is very dynamic, not only during the COVID, but over the years. And the social registration, the social economic registrations for targeting social protections remain questioning on the updating. So we are still worried about the inclusion and exclusion error for the distributions of the program. And the high frequency of shock and low frequency of data updates is one challenge. Another challenge is quite huge differentiations or inequality among regions. The lack of the accessibility and inclusiveness. I just used 3 data here for housing, electricity, and access drinking water. We could see here the differentiation between regions Java and outside Java, west part of Indonesia, and also the eastern part. So the focus of the government now is on improving the program capability to access and make or try to target as many as possible for the vulnerable to ensure that the program is equally access to all the eligible household. And it's really worsen in eastern part, and like I mentioned earlier, that the challenge is in there, and the dynamic or the multi-dimension of poverty is really diverse between these regions. So to accommodate the MPI indicators, for us is still challenges, particularly at the national level. We do have studies or assessment to use the MPI even at the national level, but we are still focusing on improving the quality of the data for the multi-dimension, to support the multi-dimension of the poverty, not only focusing in some sectors like health, education, or the living standard, but how to use the existing data from the SUSENAS to really support the policy directions. So the extreme extreme poverty elevation is only one of the priority of the government, but I mean, the extreme poverty elevation is not only one. The other is also improving the quality of health and education, provide the quality of the job, business activities, and also now to bring the green transitions in the economic recovery. So for the SDGs, for example, the Central Bureau of Statistics already mentions that for goals 12, 13, 14, and 15, they cannot produce the data because the data now belongs to each sectors as well as beyond the government, like the crude oil plantation, for example, that's belong to the associations for the oil, the palm oil. So beside improving the existing data for the social and economic, we also now try to expand the data for the environment pillar to support the low carbon development and the energy transitions. We are also trying to build the linkage between the macro and micro. In some sectors, we are building small area estimations, so we can utilize the data that are somehow exist in the village level. We have the SDGs data level. I mean the village SDGs data, as well as other data coming from the businesses, the CSOs. How could this micro data can have a linkage with the macro one? So I just want to stop here to get more input and feedback also from other speaker and participant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Vivi. Give a best applause. Ibu Vivi already present the data on poverty during the pandemic. Based on the data that Ibu Vivi already present, the highest poverty rate is still dominated by Eastern Province in Indonesia, but the number of extreme poor people district in Java still dominated. And several government initiatives during the pandemic is to modify and expand the program, expand to the social protection to be more adaptive. Ibu Vivi already explained also challenges that Indonesian face. The first one is monitoring and targeting on social protection policies. There's a time lag between the data preparation, data collection, and the dynamic of poverty itself, and the inequalities among region, Java and outside Java, West region versus East region, and also to improve the capabilities of the access, to accommodate MPI indicators and to improve reduction. It's also still challenging in Indonesia, and the focus is to improve the quality of the data itself. Thank you, Ibu Vivi. And I would like to open the discussion session from the floor here and also from the online participant. Please chat your question or discussion in Zoom chat or YouTube comment. And I think Mr. Gonzalo and Ibu Vivi would like very welcome to discuss these issues. Okay, is there any question from the floor, maybe?
There's a question in the chat box.
Pardon?
I think there's a question in the chat box.
Oh, in the
there
chat
are two
box.
questions. Yes, so one is from our friend in India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, What recommendation would you give to other countries that are starting the process of creating a national MPI? What factors facilitated the MPI being used as a tool for better governance? Why multidimensional poverty? How does the Mexican government use CONEFAL's data on multidimensional poverty? Gonzalo, this question is yours. Would you like to answer the question? Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Please.
Sure. Thank you for the question from I guess it's from India. And I would say a couple of things. One is that, as Ibu Fifi said, it is important, first of all, when we started the path towards an MPI, to be sure about the technical part, right? So, of course, we need the data. We need the support from the statistical office. We need to talk a lot with the statistical office. We need to see what type of data we have or what new data we could have. In the case of Mexico, we already had a very good income and expenditure survey, but we need to modify it. So with the help from the statistical office, we were able to change somehow that survey. So we were able to measure poverty with that instrument. So one is the technical part of, and of course, be sure to have a robust indicator with the help from local academics, perhaps from outside people as well as advisors. So that's one sphere, the sphere of the technical part. The other element that I keep saying is the political engagement part, because at the end of the day, even if we have a technically perfect indicator, we may not adopt it because of the lack of political engagement. Therefore, what we need in the process to get an MPI eventually and to use it and to adopt it is we need a lot of policy entrepreneurs or champions who are the people who can talk to key political stakeholders, to convince them to talk about what is the importance of an MPI, why a multidimensional poverty is important for the country, and therefore, so in order to improve these two elements, both the technical part and the political process, in fact, OPHI, together with the UNDP, has produced two handbooks. One handbook is about the technical elements, which was launched like 3 or 4 years ago, and the new one, which is political engagement from measurement to policy, in which in this second handbook, which is still in the press with UNDP, you can learn various political techniques. How can we convince others? How can we have, for instance, elevator pitches to talk quickly to a key political person? Who you need to talk to? You have a stakeholder mapping and a power mapping, saying, hey, for this country, I need to talk to the Ministry of Finance, to the Ministry of Education, to sometimes you have to talk to state governors. So you have a mapping of what are the key stakeholders, and we need to talk to them. So to convince them, for instance, the Ministry of Finance, to tell them, if we can have an MPI, it is possible that the budget for poverty will be easier to understand or easier to coordinate, for instance. And I believe as well that countries such as Indonesia, if you can see in a more concrete way, the examples from Colombia or Mexico or Bhutan or Mozambique, in terms of using the MPI for budget, I think it will be very useful for the convincing part. So again, I wish the best to Indonesia.
Yeah, thank you, Gonzalo. So the answer to identified factor facilitate the MPI is actually the political aspect, yeah. The political engagement to use the MPI and this will help the technical problem that face regarding to the data quality and so on. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Palguni Sundaram Biswal from India to ask directly. Yeah. Okay.
Actually,
yeah.
Thank you, Gonaljo. You are right. According to me, we have to focus in current per capita income, educational gap, access to health services, access to social security, quality and space of the dwelling, and access to basic service in the dwelling, access to food, degree of social coherence, and that's it. According to me, I think so. We have to focus in that particular areas.
Okay, Ibu Vivi, do you have any comment on the something that said by Biswal from India?
Yeah, just to try to respond from what he already put up in the chat. In Indonesia context, there are more and more people as well as the institutions that already aware the use of the data and try to optimize it to have result based as well as what is it, the database policy. Yeah, so in this regard, the effort to improve all the datas, not only at the national but also at the locals as well as beyond the locals. I mean, I'm now working on the SDGs, and I know that there are more and more private entities disclose their sustainability report with good data. So the better policies is the objective for that. Indonesia has issued the presidential decree for one data policy in order to arrange about who are the producer, who are the benefit, the user, and also create all the SOPs, the mechanism to make it or to use all the data in a safe and using some principles and also ethics. And we are still not in yet finished for setting up all of this. Hopefully, if all the data already linked to each other and can talk between system, that would be much better for all of us. So, for example, in previous time when we are talking about the rice productions, we should rely on several producer from the Ministry of Agriculture or from the logistics agencies or from the local governments, and they produce different kind of the data only for one type of data. So the setup with the one data policy is the thing that could harmonize the use of the data and optimizing in order to create access for all in terms of the usage of the data. I hope it answers Biswa.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Vivi. So the policy of one database should mitigate the challenge and
data policy, Ratna. Sorry, it's not one database, but one data policy.
One data policy, yeah. One data policy can overcome the challenge, ya, Ibu, ya. Okay, is there any other question from the floor? Yeah. We have one question here, Mr. Gonzalo and Ibu Vivi.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Hardini. I'm a doctoral student from University of Indonesia, and also I'm working in the Audit Board of Republic of Indonesia. So the important question that really interesting for me is We also know that we have sustainable development goals that we need to achieve right now. And the first point is no poverty. And for this conference, I would like to ask, because we already measured the poverty, the question will be how we will measure that all of our effort, especially in government and also in the community, we already reached our goals, which is no poverty. The question will be for Dr. Gonzalo and also Dr. Vivi. So how we able to measure the effectiveness of our effort together to make the no poverty will be reachable for us? Is it already success or is need more effort? That's all. Ibu Ratna, thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Hardini from she's a doctoral student from Universitas Indonesia and also from BPK, the audit institution, government audit in Indonesia. So the question is, how can we measure the effectiveness of all our effort in reducing poverty, and also how can we measure the SDGs #1 being achieved? Something like that, ya, Ibu Hardini. Okay, Dr. Gonzalo, can you give answer and a discussion about this?
Yeah, thank you. It was a very good question, because the world has agreed on the SDGs. We said we have to improve development by 2030, and one of the key goals is, of course, the #1 goal, which is about poverty. And if you remember, when we go deep into goal #1 about poverty, it says about we need to reduce poverty in terms of income, but it also says the target 1.2 is reduce poverty in all dimensions according to national definitions. This is very important, because the SDG is telling us we need to reduce poverty in all dimensions, and we believe in how countries are measuring poverty in various dimensions to reduce it in that way, which means that all countries should eventually have a multidimensional poverty indicator eventually. So, and that indicator should be adopted in such a way that it reflects the country's needs and the country's agreements, and especially political agreements. So in the case of Mexico, as our friend from India said, the stakeholders in Mexico talk about the importance of income, educational gap, access to health services, access to social security, quality and spaces of dwelling, access to basic services, access to food, and all that. And that is because there was a political agreement for that MPI in the case of Mexico. For Indonesia, you may have different dimensions. For India, you may have some different dimensions. But at the end of the day, what is important here is to have that agreement. And I believe that an MPI is a very good entry point for the SDGs, because they address target 1.2, reduction of poverty in various dimensions, according to national definitions. And secondly, when you reduce poverty in various dimensions, at the same time, you are addressing some of the other SDGs, SDG #2, #4, #5, about health, about education. And therefore, from our point of view, from my point of view at least, if we address poverty in a multidimensional way, it is a very good entry point for the SDGs, because we are able to coordinate ministries for poverty, and we are addressing other dimensions at the same time. So I believe this is a good choice.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gonzalo. Ibu Vivi, can you?
Yeah.
answer the question.
I agree with Gonzalo already respond. I just want to add with some point. There are 289 indicators in SDGs, and we produce the metadata. So we are aware that there are some that are already in a tier 1, which is in methodological is already approved by global and produced by more than 50% countries in the world. There are also some indicators that are in a tier 2. The methodology is already approved, but not or less than 50% country produced, and the tier 3 is still in the development. So we are monitoring as well as improve our metadata in a quite regular basis to follow with the global standard. So we are aware that the measurement, particularly in relate with the SDGs in some indicators, is still in progress. Around 124 targets out of 169 targets of SDGs is incorporated or mainstream in the midterm development plan. So by doing so, we the sector ministries could anchor all these targets and aim to achieve it. So by achieve the development target, national development target, along the line with achieving the SDGs targets. So without having the MPI by now, we are optimizing the usage of the SDGs indicators to be as a reference, as well as the objective for many programs in Indonesia. Not only by the government, but also with by the beyond the government, the non-state actors. So, like I mentioned earlier, the private entities, NGOs now also use these indicators as a reference and the objective for their programs. By doing so, we are now improving our monitoring and also evaluations in order to have SDGs targets achievements on time. The other things that I would like to add is about the methodology. Internationally, we are actually anchoring to the World Bank, but as some of you know, that the World Bank now also updates the use of their standards on PPP. So there are a couple of works now for us to adjust with the differences of the methodologies. Not only applies to the extreme poverty, but also for our poverty line. Our poverty line, because the position of Indonesia now, slowly but sure, we are entering for upper middle income country. We have to adjust actually our standard of the poverty line. It's not always easy because we've been discuss works together with the Central Bureau of Statistics, but not yet update our poverty line that have been determined since financial crisis in 1997. So many works that we still focus now, but again, at the end of the day, we keep continue our works and try to solve the use of the multi-dimension poverty data to be used by the programs in order to have or have a SDG achievement on time.
Thank you, Ibu Vivi. Maybe related to your explanation, Ibu, from YouTube, this question, Mexico started the effort of MPI from politician. can you give any indication of Indonesian Parliament's take on MPI? I think this question to you, Bu Vivi, how is Indonesian commitment, especially from the politician?
Yeah, but like Gonzalo already mentioned, when we are prepared already for the technical works, it's not always easy to explaining into the politicians.
Yeah.
It needs several translations to doing that.
Yeah, so we need to explain to the politician the need of MPI and so that the MPI can be mandated like Mexico's experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the implications by having changes of the methodology.
Okay. Yeah.
People talk about knowledge brokering. Right? And knowledge brokering is a person or a group of people who are able to translate, as you said, between the language of the technical people to the language of the politicians. Sometimes technicals are not able to communicate, but if we have knowledge brokering, then we are able to make the translation between the technical language and the political language.
Yeah. Yeah, agree with you, Gonzalo. We do need the knowledge broker here to explain to the politician the need of the database. Yeah. Okay, I would like to open one last question from the audience.
Right, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Firda from Cabinet Secretary of Indonesia. The question is still related to the communication strategy. I'm just wondering, at the first place, how did the Mexican government, like in the central government, to educate the state government, especially in the district level, about this kind of agenda, national agenda, which is MPI, because I believe that the level of education is different, right, between central government and also state government, especially district level, and also the level of understanding also is very different. So how the Mexican government come up with this kind of issue, because for example, we have this national agenda, which is MPI. So the government in district level need to understand this kind of criteria. For example, one person can be included as a poor if in energy if she or he still uses like wood, for example, something like that. So how the national government educate the state government, especially in district level. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu. So Gonzalo, maybe you can share your experience. How is the communication strategy to the state government from the central government, because the level of education, level of understanding might be different, and how to communicate this national agenda?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I guess there are various layers of communication between the central government and state government. First of all, at the very beginning, what happened with the law is that the law included the state governors as a key element, as a key stakeholders to be part of Coneval, which is the institution measuring poverty, and they included in a way that through their vote they elect the board members of that institution. So the state governors are the ones electing the board of the institution measuring poverty, and therefore that's a very good incentive for governors to be aware of the poverty measurement. Secondly, there were consultations between the central government and state governors about various issues in terms of cutoffs, in terms of the methodology, and finally, the toughest part, the most difficult part, was for the state governors to be aware that for the very first time in the history of Mexico, poverty is going to be measured at the state level. In the past, poverty was measured only at the country level. And what happened to poverty, it didn't, I mean, for governors, it didn't matter much. But as soon as the poverty measurement was done for state and for municipalities, then the whole exchange produced a change, because they were really interested, they were really preoccupied about poverty, and because poverty is measured at a state level, now the governors are really interested in producing good public policy at a state level to reduce poverty, because no governor is happy when when poverty goes up in their states and it reduces in other states, right? So governors start almost competing to reduce poverty in the Mexican case. So that was the interaction between the central government, the parliament, and the state governors.
Lalu, Ibu Vivi, would you like to add something?
I don't.
Okay.
I think there's no question for me from the last one.
Okay, Ibu Vivi. Okay, well, I think the time is also limiting our very interesting discussion. Let me present a few conclusions from our discussion today. The first one is that we already hear the Mexico's experience in developing the national MPI. As Gonzalo already explained, the development of national MPI start from the technical aspect, but it also come from legal to mandate to use. So political support is very important, and MPI makes sense if we use it in public policy, and also can be used to budget allocation policy. And from Ibu Vivi, we know that Indonesian government in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic is trying to be more adaptive in social protection and also climate change and disaster reduction, and we optimizing the database that we already have and development of a more comprehensive one. We're moving to one policy of data, and in doing so, we have several challenges. The first one is in monitoring and targeting on social protection policies. There's a time lag between the data and the dynamic of the poverty itself, and also there's challenge in inequality among regions in Indonesia. And right now we're trying to improve the data quality, and we know that from this discussion, communication is very important, and I hope all of us here can be, as Gonzalo said, knowledge broker. We can transfer our knowledge and our understanding in the importance of database to other parties, so that in public policy area, all the policy can be taken based on the data and the high quality of the data. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Give a big applause to two panelists. Thank you, Ibu Vivi and Mr. Gonzalo, for your presentation and explanation. It's very interesting discussion. Terima kasih, Ibu. Thank you, Gonzalo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. Good night. from Mexico.
you.